Designing visually appealing and effective thumbnails is one of the hardest things to do as a new YouTuber, but I'm going to share with you some of the basic principles of visual design that anybody can learn so that you can create thumbnails that are both visually appealing and effective at driving views to your videos. So let's dive in. First up, let's talk about the rule of thirds. This is a basic principle of photography and design that can help you create a more balanced and visually appealing composition. So how do you use the rule of thirds? Divide your frame into 9 equal parts. Then you'll place your most important elements either along those lines or at the intersections themselves. For example, if you're taking a photo of a person, you might want to place their eyes along one of the horizontal lines. This can create a more interesting and dynamic composition rather than just positioning the subject in the middle of the frame. The rule of thirds is a great way to add some visual interest and make them more appealing to viewers. Plus, it's super easy to use. Now let's talk about some complementary colors. These are colors that are opposite of each other, and they can create a striking and visually interesting contrast when used together. Some examples of complementary colors are red and green, blue and orange, and purple and yellow. When used together, these colors can really make your thumbnail stand out and grab your viewers' attention. For example, let's say you're making a thumbnail for a cooking video. You might use a black-orange background and feature a picture of a green vegetable as the main subject. The contrast between the orange and the green will make your thumbnail pop and catch your viewer's eye. But hold on, be careful not to go overboard on the complementary colors. Too much contrast can be overwhelming and make your thumbnail really hard to read. To start, try using 1 or 2 pops of color to add some visual interest to your thumbnail. I like to use the Adobe Color Wheel for this, and the link for that is in the description down below. Another important principle when designing your thumbnails is to consider foreground and background elements. By using both foreground and background elements in your thumbnail, you can create depth and visual interest and draw your viewers' attention to a specific part of the thumbnail. For example, let's say you're making a thumbnail about hiking. You might feature a close-up of a beautiful flower in the foreground and a stunning mountain landscape in the background. The contrast between the close-up of the flower and the distant landscape creates depth and draws your viewers' attention to the main subject of the thumbnail, the flower. You can also use the foreground and the background to create a sense of scale or perspective. For example, if you're using a thumbnail of a new car, you might want to feature the car in the foreground and maybe a city skyline in the background to give your viewers a sense of the size of the car and how it fits in the world around it. But there's one last thing to consider when we're talking about effective how to design effective thumbnails. And that's the value that those thumbnails are offering to your viewers. This will help you figure out what is the most important parts of your video and how you can visually communicate that to your viewer. For example, let's say you're creating a thumbnail for a makeup tutorial. Your thumbnail should feature a close-up of the makeup look you created and make it clear to your viewers that they will be learning a new makeup technique by watching your video. On the other hand, if you're creating a thumbnail for a comedy video, you might want to feature an image of you joking or something to convey the entertainment that the viewer is going to get by watching your video. But visually designing the thumbnail is pretty much the last step. Gosh, Oz, what are you doing? Come here. I'm a little grump right now. But designing a visually appealing thumbnail is the last step when creating it. In order to level up your skills and create really great clickable thumbnails, you need to watch this entire playlist I've made for you right up here.